Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This is our part of our TXCPA Austin mentorship program. This is our panel Careers in Accounting Part 2. Part 1 was last month. We had some fantastic speakers from Big Four, regional firm, government entity. So had a great panel, great time with that last panel. For our panel today, we have 3 more speakers for you. Our first one is Shawnee Miller, CPA. She's president of Shawnee Miller CPA PC. So she owns her own firm. So anyone has questions about, kind of being a owner of a firm, working at a smaller scale, feel free to, ask her any questions you might have. Our next speaker is Susan Lipscomb, CPA CFP. She is vice president and treasurer of Argent Wealth Management, Inc. And lastly, we have Leanne Porter, CPA MBA, who is vice president of retirement plans at the Texas Hospital Association. So thank you to all of our fantastic speakers for joining us today. Looking forward to a wonderful panel. So we'll start off. Susan, you're in the upper left corner for me, so we're going to go ahead and start with you. First question, how did you end up in your current role? And did you plan for this role early in your career, or did it just kind of happen as time went on?
Kind of happened through various experiences. I was thinking about this question. As I look back, I can see where God has led me through certain different experiences to prepare me to get to this point. I had started out as a computer science major and took an accounting class just for fun one summer in college and really liked it and started out in accounting. Started out with what was Ernst & Winnie at the time, one of the big 8 firms, and worked there for, I worked there for like 8 years. Then I decided for a matter of circumstances, it was a good time for me to leave. I had a young child, and I had my own CPA practice for 13 years, grew that, ended up having some employees. But how I ended up here was I would see my clients' tax returns and see that they weren't having much in the way of investment earnings. And I knew they really weren't saving for college. And I could also see where mistakes were being made by some of their brokers. Well, back in 2003, UT offered for the first time the Certified Financial Planner curriculum in the evening. And so I was part of the first guinea pig class for that and went to UT at night and then sat for my CFP exam. And I thought I could do both, having a CPA practice and doing this. But I found when I went to a continuing education class and like 4 hours was spent on the domestic production deduction. And I was like, that's a sign that I'm ready to transition and do financial planning full time. And so I sold my practice to a CPA friend and started doing this full time back in 2005. So that's a long answer, but all the things that I had done in the past, all my experiences in working with a variety of clients at Ernst & Young helped prepare me for even some of the things that I do now.
Well, very excited. It's interesting to hear that your start was computer science and you moved to more what I'll call traditional accounting, but nowadays technology has kind of come at the forefront of things. So you see it's almost the reverse. People that, were thinking they would go the traditional audit tax route are starting. I'm seeing a lot of people started to double major in accounting and computer science. So that way they can do the accounting piece and the technology piece. So interesting to see how things have kind of come full circle there. Right. All right, Shawnee, you're next on the order. Same question. How did you end up in your current role? And did you plan for this earlier in your career?
Well, mine was accidental. I was sitting on the floor and signed up for college because that's what you do. You went to college. And my mom said, you're good at math, which is a very small portion of what we do, as we know now. And so she signed me up for accounting, never taken it, didn't even know what it was. So I showed up for class and it was easy and it kind of stuck. And then ironically, a friend of the family said, you should go to Dora Dyson, who's in town. We're in a small, like 8,000 population town. Go see if you can work for her. And so I just walked in and she needed help, sticking labels. And so I said, I'll do anything. And then I just stayed. And that's how I ended up where I am. That's how that worked out.
Cool. So you kind of started from the bottom and worked your way all the way up to owning your own firm.
Yeah, I shredded a lot of papers before I got here.
Cool. Very cool. And Leanne, we'll pivot over to you. Same question. How did you end up in your current role, and did you plan for it early in your career?
No, I would say I bounced around a bit. I got a degree in finance from UT, thought I wanted to be a stockbroker in New York. Then I figured out after I graduated what a stockbroker in New York really does and decided that wasn't a cool thing. So got a job in Houston as a staff accountant for a medical group. And while I was there, they got a letter from the IRS saying that their pension plan was discriminatory and they need to fix it. And so we decided to terminate it. And because you had about 150 doctors and about 1,500 lower paid employees. And I'm not crying, sorry, this is the cold thing going. Anyway, and so so the CEO said, hey, I want you to shut down this pension plan and start a 401k plan. And so I went back to the CFO's office and told him what he said. And I said, what's a 401k plan? I didn't even know. So I remember my CFO telling me, he's the one that also encouraged me to go be a CPA. And I didn't have enough accounting hours. So I had to go to U of H and take more accounting before I could even sit for the exam. And then, and he was a teacher at Becker. So he encouraged me, strongly encouraged me. And anyway, and then he said, well, I think you can make a career out of this benefits stuff. And of course, at 23, I told him he didn't know what he's talking about. So anyway, so here I am many years later, and we're still friends. But I switched back and forth for about 10 years between accounting positions and benefits, retirement plan positions, depending on where I was working. And the benefit, health and welfare benefits and retirement plans just stuck more. And so I had my own little tax business for about a year or two, but I didn't want to do all the hustling you needed to get clients. So I went back to corporate world. So anyway, that's it.
Cool, very cool. Yeah, I think that's also a great point that I myself as a student had no idea. I thought, okay, clients just come to you, right? You don't need to go out and get them. But I think it's a very real thing that students, young professionals may not realize that you're right. There is hustle that needs to happen in order to make those clients walk in the door. So
yeah,
awesome. Well, Leanne, we'll stick with you for the next question. How has having the CPA contributed to your career progression?
I'd say the biggest thing is it's because, like I said, probably after my first 10 years, I got out of straight accounting, but it gives me credibility. So that's one thing, you can put it on your business card and people take you a little more seriously. And maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but especially being female. And then the other part is, I had a lot of insurance brokers and retirement plan people trying to pull the wool over my eyes and, fees, commissions, things like that. And so I was able to read the financial statements and read all the contracts. I do a lot in compliance and contracts, which that law section of the CPA thing really helped out on. And so I think that really helps because I've dealt with the IRS, the DOL, with straightening plans out, that kind of thing. So knock on wood, all my audits have been successful with the government. So we'll just keep hope that stays as my track record. But, I think it's just all that detailed work So I'm not like doing journal entries and those kind of things. So anyway, I think I'd die if I had to do that. So.
Awesome. Very, very insightful answer. Yeah, definitely. My professor, when I was in school, always tell me it's much easier for an accountant to figure out like something to do with law than for a lawyer to go the other way and try to figure out the accounting piece. So something to keep in mind.
I totally agree with that.
Susan, we'll go to you. Same question. How has this having the CPA contributed to your career progression?
Well, in a couple of ways. One, my first 8 years was in audit. And so as part of doing audits, one of the things you have to think about is, okay, what could go wrong and how do you mitigate that? So what I spend a lot of my time working with clients on is estate planning and insurance planning. And so I look at with my clients and they have their financial plan is, well, what could go wrong that could derail that? So it's just a different way of thinking. And then having a CPA exam, you have to be able to do well in terms of analysis. So that do a lot of analysis. And like Leanne said, do a lot of reading. Because of the experience and having a CPA, a lot of times I won't know the answer, but it gives me the understanding of what I don't know and who I need to get referred to somebody else or to research. And I think like Leanna, it does give credibility in terms of clients. They like to see that we have that to offer, that credibility, that reputation, and also help me prepare me for when I took the Certified Financial Planner exam. Having already gone through the CPA exam and experienced that, helped me prepare then towards doing the CFP. And then also, one of the things I do a lot is I do a lot of tax planning for my clients. And so the tax knowledge and just, again, knowing where to go look for answers if you don't have the answers. Perfect. And Shawnee, by the way, when I had my CPA practice, Dora was my peer reviewer for all the compilations reports that I did. So, Miss Dyson, that is. So that goes way back.
We still do peer review.
So as you can see, accounting is a very, very, very small world. Cool. So Shawnee
does a lot of peer reviews. There's a lot of them.
Shawnee, we'll go to you. Same question. How has having the CPA contributed to your career progression?
Well, I guess the obvious is I was put in a position to stay here. I stuck it out and I took that exam so many times. I finally got it. So one, it teaches me you just got to put your head down and keep going, especially when you're in the public accounting world and tax season. You just got to keep at it. And then it put me where I could eventually, once Dora was ready to step back some, could buy the client list and start at my own firm. And then, all the clients, I haven't had to do the one where you're pounding the pavement coming to get clients. I got lucky where they just stuck here. I'm in the same building. We're still working together. Just legally, it's different. But they always ask me all the time, are you a CPA? Are you a CPA too? And yes, I am. And they immediately go, oh, okay, I'll talk to you. So it's the credibility, the comfort, the reputation. It makes it where I could do this transition easily.
Exactly. I mean, and the credibility is everything. I mean, just like, you wouldn't want somebody doing open heart surgery on you if they weren't a doctor. There's just some guy off the street, okay, I don't want to trust you. Same thing. You don't want someone doing financial surgery on you who doesn't have their CPA. So definitely the credibility is definitely a huge selling point. Shawnee, we'll stick with you on this one. Especially curious to hear this, being that you kind of own your own firm. What's something unique or less known about your role?
That immediately I think of soft skills. When you own your own firm, especially a small firm, you do everything. You don't get to just sit down and do one job and never do anything else. But talking to the clients, being able to converse with them and actually make them feel, and you really should feel like you care, give them comfort, They're telling you things that they would never tell anyone else. They may not even tell their spouse or their family. So to have that rapport with the people that you're working with and to give them that confidence is the biggest hurdle I've had to go over. I'm shy. I don't want to talk. I'm shaking as I'm speaking on this. But you have to have that skill. You can't just be good at the technical stuff and the rules. You got to be able to talk to people.
Good point. Good point. And Leanne, how about you? What's something that's unique or less known about the role that you're in?
Hold on, there we go. I was trying to hit the button. Well, I think it's similar to Shawnee that I was really introverted, when I was young. And somewhere along the way, I guess I got over that because my job now, it's technical, but basically what I do is I go out to hospitals and I talk to them about joining our retirement plan. And it's 50% sales. And it's not the same as being a commission salesperson, but so the good part that makes me feel good though is when I go out to a hospital and they tell me what they're doing in their retirement plan. And then I go, well, you might not want to do that because that's illegal. Or you might want to not do that because your fees are really high or whatever. And then we're able to bring them in our group plan and do a lot of good for the employees. And that makes me feel good. And then once they get in our group, they're all very happy. I just spent the whole week at a conference. I think that's where I got sick. And I had people after people telling me how good it's going, how well it's going. And so it's a lot of feel good stuff, really. And I think, but me doing sales, I think I would have never, when I was 22, I would have run the other way, just no way.
Good insight for sure. And Susan, same thing to you. What's something that's unique or less known about your role?
Well, one reason going way back why I got into accounting in the first place was that one class I took at the community college during the summer, but after my freshman year, the professor said that with accounting, it's not the numbers, it's the people behind the numbers that make it interesting. And that's true because you really get to know people well, know their family, what their goals are. And I've seen people change jobs based on helping them create plans or reach their retirement goals. So that's one thing. The other thing is that like where I am, we don't do any marketing or advertising at all, period. We really haven't. And I didn't do that with my CPA practice either. If you do a good job and you put your clients first and they know that they can trust you, then you will grow just by referrals. So the key is like what we do, we have to by law be fiduciaries to our clients. A registered investment advisor has to put their clients first. Unlike, say, brokers. If you are doing what's right for your client and you're helping them and providing value, then they're going to talk to other people and you're going to grow by referral. So in our role, it's kind of like doing public accounting in that you have to be objective. You have to make sure that you are competent. You have certain ethics you have to abide by. And so that's something that some people may not be aware of in terms of the financial planning field.
Fantastic. And that's honestly a great segue into my next question. So we'll stick with you on this, Susan, if you want to elaborate on anything. But what are some skills or certification? I know you have your CFP, but certifications or skills that you might need to be successful in your role that people, just like the point you just made, people don't think of when they think of accounting?
Well, in our area, you have to have certain licenses. You have to take some exams. If you pass a CFP exam, then you don't have to take those licensing exams. And the CFP, I will say, was much harder than the CPA exam. I've actually written questions for the CPA exam. And with the CPA exam, you have to have clear-cut answers. With the CFP, they actually try to give you multiple good answers and try to trick you. And so I think, getting that additional education, because you have to have additional education to do that, and taking the exam, that helps in meeting the education part of it. But a lot of it is just based on experience, working through many different people, their stories that you can relate to other people. And really, it's just having a compassion and interest to help your clients. One reason I went this route and didn't stay in public accounting is that what I was doing before in auditing and in accounting and in tax is you were looking back. And it's kind of a necessary thing for a client. Whereas what I do now is I'm looking forward, making plans, and it's something that clients want as opposed to sometimes just a necessity.
Fantastic point. That's something I see all the time. And like what I do, like working with technology, it's sometimes the client's like, I don't want to have to go through the effort to do this. Like it's not what I want, but regulatory or internal reasons, whatever it may be, it's something they have to do. And so you have to put up with some frustration sometimes where they're frustrated. You have to ask for their records again and get clarity and things like that. But it's all part of the process. So Shawnee, we'll kick it over to you. Same question. What are some skills or certifications that you need to be successful in your role?
I've found that since we're in a small firm, we all do a little bit of everything. Just based off the transition from school to the exam to working, you have to have like critical thinking, problem solving skills. So like Susan mentioned, like the exam questions and in school, textbook perfect, all your answers are there. In life here, you get like 50% of what you need. And sometimes you have to pull it out of everything, or you have to make some assumptions, unfortunately, but you have to problem solve, critical thinking. And if you can't use technology nowadays, like you have to be able to do that. But those are the three biggest things that I think if you go into public accounting, if you don't have them, you're not going to be very happy about the job that you're in.
Awesome. And Leanne, same to you. What are some skills or certifications that you need to be successful in your role?
Well, that's a good question. Because when I go to a lot of the CPA seminars, because I have to have my 40 hours a year or whatever, not very many of them apply to my job, what I actually do. And so I end up with a hodgepodge of education, I guess I would call it. Not that it's bad for me, but I usually try to focus on the tax or something like that that's kind of sort of related to retirement plans. Anyway, but I think the other thing is I have my Group 1 insurance license. And then I also took a bunch of financial planning classes. And so the combination of all that has worked out really, really well because I'm able to see the big picture, I guess, for the employer. And I think that helps.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. That is one thing. As I've progressed in my own career, started from staff, senior, and now I'm a manager. Like the big picture has gotten more like prevalent, and like I start to see it now. Whereas before, as a staff, okay, I'm working on one piece here or there, and like I see up to a certain point, but I don't see beyond that. And I'm like, okay, sometimes it feels like it's a waste of time, or I don't get why we have to do this.
Right.
And then you go up and you get that bigger picture view, and you're like, okay, I see where this piece of the puzzle fits into the grand scheme of things.
Right.
Awesome. Well, I'll pause here real quick. For anyone in the audience, you can either come off mute or put in the chat. But if you have any questions that have kind of come to mind that you'd like any of our panelists to answer, I'll take a little 30-second pause and see if anyone has any kind of questions that are top of mind you'd like to ask. So you can either feel free to just come off chat, or if you'd rather come off mute, or if you'd rather put it in the chat, feel free to do that as well. Rebecca, looks like you came off mute. Did you have a question? If you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Microphone problems. Yeah.
You maybe want to type it in the chat real quick. Okay. Anybody else real quick before we go on to the next question? We'll circle back to Rebecca. Okay. We'll jump to the next one. I think this is my favorite question. I'm gonna jump to the last one real quick. Here we go. Has anyone guided a candidate through the work experience, through the required work experience? So Susan, Shawnee, Leanne, whoever wants to kind of to jump in. Question's a little specific, but maybe if you've had someone who maybe worked for you, Shawnee, I know you mentioned you had candidates that are working for you right now as they're trying to pursue the CPA. Someone who's maybe touch on somebody who's worked for you, and while they're working under or for you, they've been trying to go through and get licensed, and specifically on that work experience requirement. Maybe there's anything you can speak to on that.
I guess, do they mean like, have I made sure that I was that person who could help them meet like that 1 year underneath the CPA?
I guess maybe you could say, Rebecca's talking about like what is non-routine work. So what are some examples, maybe of some tasks that they did, or areas like as they had discussions with the state board that, hey, if you do A and B, these really don't count, but C and D do. If you ever had to work on anything of that nature.
Not that, but I do know here we do a little bit of everything. We do tax, audit, peer review, consulting stuff. So I make sure that everyone can experience each area. That way they're more well-rounded. There's not like a surprise, what is that word? What is this thing that they're testing me on? They get exposure in each area to help them prepare for it, is I guess the best answer I can give. I haven't really dealt with the state board except for on a personal level.
Susan or Leanne, have either of you had to deal with that at all?
No.
It's a bit more of a specific question. I'll try to answer the best that I can. At the end of the day, kind of what the state board says goes. I know I did an internship for Petco, working in their accounting department. And when we first sent my paperwork in, the state board was initially going to reject it because kind of they said, oh, well, this seems to appear to be routine work on the surface. So we had to go back through and elaborate and do some things there. But generally speaking, one way to think about it would be, as far as like non-routine work, usually you're safe if it's something that you're going to do that is seasonal. So taxes are a great example. If preparing the tax return, like that's something you're going to do once a year. That's not a routine thing that's kind of done a week in, week out. That's one way to think about it. Your best bet, if you're unsure about something, don't hesitate to reach out to the state board. I mean, at the end of the day, they're kind of the deciding factor. And I know folks plenty of times have reached out to them directly, say, hey, before you even sent in your paperwork, this is what I'm doing now. Does this count? Why or why not? Is there something I can do to change it to, so that what I'm doing now doesn't count, but if we tweak a few things, maybe then it would count. So that would be my best advice to you at this point, is that reach out to the state board and see what kind of guidance they can give you. Any other questions from anyone? Okay. Leanne, we'll start with you for this next one. This is my favorite question. If you could go back to the start of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it would be just to maybe believe in myself more. It has nothing to do with accounting skills. It's just, just to, go for your dream, whatever it is, just go for it. And especially while you're young. And And I just don't think, I don't think I always did that. And so sometimes it gives you regrets, but it doesn't really have anything to do with accounting specifically. It's just that, yeah, you got to think about where you want to be, where you want to end up.
Fantastic advice, definitely. Yeah, I think there will always be things that you do regret at times. Life happens, things things don't always go the way you do, but definitely good advice to always kind of believe in yourself. And I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the phrase imposter syndrome, where you kind of feel like, okay, everyone's depending on me, I really don't feel like I'm the one to do this. Like, you feel like you're not good enough. I'll tell you now, that happens to almost everybody. As you move up, you kind of progress in your career, it's going to happen at some point where you're there. And like happened to me, I just got promoted to manager this past January. So I've been doing it for 4 months. And there have been times where I'm leading a meeting and somebody asks me a question that I don't know the answer to immediately. And I'm like, oh, great. Now, I look foolish. I shouldn't have been here. They should have waited to promote you. You kind of have those thoughts, and you really need to push that aside, because like you are where you're at for a reason. So just because you have, a bad meeting or a bad day, like don't let that like distract you from the end goal. So really, really appreciate that insight, Leanne. Susan, we'll pivot to you. Same question. If you could go back to the start of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
I think everything has kind of prepared me to get to where I'm now, but I will share some advice that was given to me when I was a young staff accountant that I thought was very valuable. And she told me, read as much as possible in a whole bunch of different things, a whole bunch of different subjects, because that will allow you to communicate and have a conversation with a variety of different people that have different interests. And I think that was very helpful because it helps you to build rapport with people. And so I would encourage the same thing. Don't just read stuff that you're interested in, but try to read real broadly and be able to speak on a whole bunch of different topics. It doesn't have to be accounting, it doesn't have to be technical, but just a whole bunch of different things.
Awesome. Definitely agree with that. I know that's like my nightly routine. Like before I go to bed is I'll find stuff to read for 30 minutes. Usually I'll be on NPR or something. I try to say sometimes it's Facebook, and sometimes I want to read something mindless. Other times, I might pull up, okay, let me just see the AICPA always puts out articles and things. So it doesn't have to be kind of, can be whatever, but definitely read always. I mean, that's kind of a hallmark of our profession, right? Is CPE, that continuing education, continuous learning. That goes beyond just accounting. That's just, I think it's a good rule for life that you always want to keep learning. So really, really appreciate that, Susan. And Shawnee, we'll kick it to you for the last answer to this one. You go back to the start of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I guess my career wasn't that long ago. It's been, I think, 13 years since I got into this, so I can kind of remember a little more clearly what it was like. But the biggest thing for me is, one, what Leanne said, it's okay if you don't know something. It's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. You don't know what you don't know. And then also that kind of segues to Susan, just read whatever. Don't be closed off to I just want to practice tax. Don't do that to yourself. It's limiting yourself. Just be open. Force yourself to get uncomfortable. I never wanted to do that. I didn't want to even answer the phone, but force yourself to get uncomfortable and you will get through it. And take advantage of doing those other jobs that you might find it boring. I do audits, but there's a big portion of audits that are just make me want to fall asleep. But I do it and I learn something every single time, even though it's pulling teeth for me. I do it anyway, and it makes me better at the other things that I do. And another thing that, Dora has given me advice on just as I grow, hopefully at the firm level, is to take on clients that value you. Don't take on people just because you're desperate to have someone come in and be a client and maybe, get some revenue from it, but take people who care what you say, who listen to you, that know you're looking out for them. If they would listen, y'all can talk about it and they do what you say, in this, mutual agreement thing, that keep those people around you and don't just have quantity. You really need quality, and it'll make your job a lot better, because we have amazing clients and we don't have to be stressed every day. So that's one of the big things.
I think I was going to say I would agree with Shawnee about that last part, because even even in my current job with the hospital clients, if they don't value what you have, I mean, those are the most frustrating. You spend all your time on them, and you get no sense of fulfillment from it. I would say is that they, they're the type that I want to pull my hair out. Whereas all your other clients that really appreciate you, you want to go to the, 110%. So anyway, I'm glad you said that.
Awesome. Fantastic advice for sure all around. I'll actually add in my own advice I like to give folks. Anything you do, be willing and able to give 100% of it, whatever it is, even if it's something that you kind of got voluntold for, and you're like, okay, well, you might feel like, okay, I'm stuck with this now. Just, somebody made a mistake and you're the one having to fix it. Whatever it is, always give 100% on it, because it's going to build your reputation. People are going to look to you as someone who's reliable and dependable. The flip side of that, that's why I said willing and able. Sometimes you're already juggling 5, 6, 7 things, and another thing comes through the door. If you realistically can't give 100% to that 7th thing, you have to be comfortable with saying no. It's like, you know what, I'd love to help you with this. I understand you feel I'm the best person for it, blah, 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 blah. I already have too much on my plate, because the worst thing you can do is take on that 7th thing, and then you're overwhelmed, and then you're going to start dropping things. And you lose that reputation that you spent all this time building up. So go at it always 100%, even if it's something it was advice that a senior gave me, actually, when I was an intern, because he had a previous intern that worked for him that would get work and then say, okay, well, I said I would do this, but something came up, so I'm just not going to finish it this week. I'm going to wait till, and the team was kind of waiting on it. And so he says, hey, things happen. Stuff, there's going to be stuff outside your control. It might be frustrating, but always give it 100%. So that way, people know they can depend on you, because that's going to be important as you go throughout your career, especially as you start to progress to senior manager and beyond. That's going to be a critical skill that you need to be able to, sometimes get your hands messy, and just like Shawnee was saying earlier, you have to just be able to push through things and get it done. So, but I sounds like I'm talking out 2 sides of my mouth here. Do that, but be willing to say no when the time comes. If you truly are at the point where you're like, hey, I have the 6 things I can handle, say no to that 7th thing. That is all the questions that we have. I have about a few minutes left. Does anyone else in the audience have any questions that they'd like to ask for the panel? Nobody? Okay. Yep, no problem at all. We'll go, if y'all don't mind, Susan, Shawnee, and Leanne, we'll go really quick rapid fire. What's one last kind of closing thought you want to give to our attendees today? And we'll start with you, Susan. So one last quick closing thought.
I will just say that in the field that I'm in, that there's a really need for people to come into this field. The average age of people that do what I do is about my age. And I'm not going to say what that is, but it's very close to retirement. So there's a lot of opportunities if somebody wants to go a non-traditional route and go into financial planning.
Awesome. And Leanne, how about you? Last closing thought.
Yeah, I would just say getting my CPA was the smartest thing I ever did. Now, I had a lot of encouragement and pressure and pushing me along the way, but I think it was even even more important than where I went to college or what I majored in or anything else, because it has always helped me. It has never been a negative. And so, except all your friends want you to do their taxes, but they get over that.
I want to double down on that really quick. Once you have your CPA, nobody cares where you went to school, when you graduated, what classes you took, what your GPA, none of that matters. Once you've taken that test and you've kind of run the gauntlet and you've proven, hey, I've done what it takes to earn my CPA, nothing else matters. That is your golden ticket. That is your badge of I'm competent in accounting, and that's that instant credibility that you'll get.
Agree.
And Shawnee, same thing. Last quick closing thought, and then we'll wrap it up.
I agree with both of the 2 points. There's a huge need for people to go into the public accounting and industry stuff, and then there's get your license. Don't stop. Keep going. Don't take a break. It's hard to start again. If you do, once you get it, you got it. And I guess to just have a different part is to get involved. Try to do little things like this, or go to mid-year board meeting if you can, and get to know people, because you get stuck in your own little world, especially if you're in a small town. I don't really have anyone else here. So get involved if you can. Join the memberships, go to the meetings.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll do a quick round to all of our panelists. Really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and speak to everybody here.